I bound Rachel and David to chairs in his living room. They were terrified, both begging for their lives, their voices trembling with fear. I remember standing over them, feeling a sick sense of satisfaction as I watched them squirm. I had them exactly where I wanted them. Then I gave Rachel a choice. "Which one of you gets to live?" I asked. "You or David?" Rachel's eyes went wide with terror. She looked at me as if I were a stranger. "Michael, please, don't do this," she whispered. But I didn't care. I needed her to understand what she had done to me, how her betrayal had torn me apart. I needed her to make the same impossible choice she had forced me into, her love for me or her love for him. "If you want to live," I said, "you have to decide. Let me tell you what actually brought me into these situations. My name is Michael Brooks, and I used to believe in love. I was married to Rachel, the love of my life, for 10 years. We had a storybook marriage, at least. That's how it appeared to everyone else. We lived in a beautiful house on the outskirts of the city, went on exotic vacations, attended social gatherings where everyone admired how happy we seemed. But behind closed doors, things were different. I should have seen the signs. I should have noticed Rachel pulling away long before I did. But I was blinded by my love for her and by my belief that our bond was unbreakable. So, when everything fell apart, I was unprepared for the devastation that followed. I work as a therapist, and my job is to help people navigate their emotional pain, yet I couldn't see my own marriage unraveling. Ironic, isn't it? The moment I started noticing the subtle changes in Rachel's behavior, late nights at the office, secretive phone calls, the way she avoided my touch, I knew something was wrong. But I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't bring myself to confront the truth. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when everything became clear. I came home early from work, planning to surprise Rachel with dinner. Instead, I was the one who received the surprise. As I opened the door to our bedroom, I saw Rachel lying in bed with another man. The scene felt surreal, like something out of a nightmare. My heart pounded, my vision blurred, and for a moment, I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching this unfold from above. They didn't notice me at first. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to speak, unable to move. When Rachel finally looked up and saw me standing there, the shock on her face mirrored my own. The man beside her scrambled to get dressed, but I didn't care about him. My eyes were locked on Rachel, my wife, the woman I thought I knew. I don't remember what I said in that moment, or if I said anything at all. The room spun, and I stumbled out of the house, into the pouring rain. I don't even remember driving away. All I knew was that everything I had built, everything I had believed in, was a lie. After that day, I became obsessed. Rachel tried to apologize, tried to explain, but I didn't want to hear her excuses. I didn't care why she had done it. I only cared about making her feel the pain she had inflicted on me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in that bed with him, and the rage inside me grew. I started following them. I knew who the man was. His name was David. He worked with Rachel. I began stalking them, watching their every move, tracking their schedules. I needed to understand how long this had been going on, how deep the betrayal went. The more I learned, the angrier I became. They thought they were clever, meeting in secret, exchanging stolen kisses in hidden places. But I saw it all. I knew every detail of their affair, the hours they spent together, the lies Rachel told to cover her tracks. My mind was consumed by it, and I couldn't focus on anything else. I wanted revenge. I wanted them both to feel the humiliation, the heartache, the despair that had swallowed me whole. I hatched a plan, one that would make them suffer the way I had. It was simple, really. I waited until the perfect moment when I knew they would be together, alone. I broke into David's apartment that night. I wore a mask, something to hide my identity, though part of me wanted them to know it was me. But I wasn't ready for that yet. I tied them up. I bound Rachel and David to chairs in his living room. They were terrified, both begging for their lives, their voices trembling with fear. I remember standing over them, feeling a sick sense of satisfaction as I watched them squirm. I had them exactly where I wanted them. Then, I gave Rachel a choice. Which one of you gets to live? I asked. You or David? Rachel's eyes went wide with terror. She looked at me as if I were a stranger. Michael, please, don't do this, she whispered. But I didn't care. I needed her to understand what she had done to me, how her betrayal had torn me apart. I needed her to make the same impossible choice she had forced me into, her love for me, or her love for him. If you want to live, I said, you have to decide. For what felt like an eternity, Rachel hesitated. She glanced at David, then back at me. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable. She knew this wasn't a game. I wasn't bluffing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she made her decision. I'm sorry, David, she whispered. I saw the look of horror in David's eyes as he realized what was happening. Rachel had chosen her own life over his. And that was when I knew there was no love between them. There was no deep, meaningful connection. It had all been a lie, just like our marriage. In that moment, everything changed. My anger, my need for revenge, it all evaporated. Rachel's choice shattered the illusion I had built in my mind. She was as selfish as David. They both deserved each other. But the damage was done. Before I could process what had happened, Rachel broke free from her bindings. In her panic, she grabbed the gun I had brought with me and fired. The shot rang out, deafening, and David slumped in his chair, blood spreading across his chest. I hadn't planned for this. I hadn't expected Rachel to kill him. The police arrived shortly after. Rachel was in shock, shaking uncontrollably, unable to speak. I was arrested on the spot, charged with breaking and entering, kidnapping, and conspiracy. Rachel was taken into custody as well, though the story she told painted her as the victim. She claimed she had acted in self-defense, that she had no choice but to shoot David to save her own life. But I knew the truth. Rachel's silence in the aftermath was deafening. She refused to speak to me, refused to explain herself. I was left to pick up the pieces of what remained of my life, sitting in a prison cell, haunted by the realization that in my quest for revenge, I had lost everything. I tried to rationalize it, to tell myself that I hadn't meant for things to go this far. But deep down, I knew that I had been the one to set this tragedy in motion. I had let my anger, my jealousy, consume me, and in the end, it had cost me everything. Rachel never visited me after the trial. I don't know where she is now, and I'm not sure I care anymore. The truth is, we destroyed each other long before that night. The moment I saw her with David, our marriage was over, even if neither of us wanted to admit it. As I sit here, reflecting on everything that happened, I realized that it wasn't Rachel's affair that ruined us. It was my obsession with revenge, my inability to let go of the betrayal. I thought I could make her feel the same pain I felt, but in the end, it only led to more destruction. I lost myself in my need for control, for justice. And now, as I live with the consequences, I wonder if I was the one who pulled the trigger all along metaphorically, if not literally. Rachel's silence speaks volumes, but I know that deep down she and I are both to blame for what happened. In the end, there were no winners, only victims.